where you scream to watch that, watch this, and I'll dive down through this hairy flesh.
Hi, and welcome to Watch This. I'm CJ Johnson. Spoiler alert! If you have not finished watching Big Little Lies and you intend to, turn this off now because Miriam Capper's back and we are going to discuss the whole thing, including the finale, the ending, the solving of all three of the mysteries.
Did you want it back? Oh, my.
I'm trying to decide whether I'm happy or sad.
Tears me apart.
People usually know.
And I know in my heart, in this cold.
Hi Miriam, thanks for coming back.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So Big Little Lies is over, and when you were last on and we were discussing it after only having seen a few episodes, we both sort of talked about the fact that the central mystery, which is not only a whodunit, but who gets it done too,
Yes.
because it withholds both the victim and the murderer, was not what interested us. But I would posit that as it all wraps up, it becomes very much about the mystery.
Absolutely. It was so exciting, that final build up to how is this actually going to happen. When you realise that they're heading in the same location where you saw in the first scene, you see each character gradually go down, all the characters that we love go down to that area. I was clutching my pearls the whole time, CJ.
Yeah?
I was going, oh, what's happening? Yeah.
You dressed up for it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that, I found that in episodes 5 and 6, I was waning a little on the series, even at the point of after 5, even with only 2 to go, thinking I might not even finish this.
Really?
It was veering into, dare I say it, too soapy territory for me. But it totally won me back with episode 7. I think episode 7 was masterfully directed. I just thought it was so well directed, and as you say, the confluence of all those characters at that location, and then the way that it was all revealed was just brilliantly done and had me absolutely gripped.
Me too, but I completely agree with you, but I also want to understand what you mean by soapy in those 2 episodes.
I thought it was just getting into stuff that I was like, oh, come on. I guess specifically the Reese Witherspoon affair and how those scenes were handled and that scripting was playing out. And then, I suppose, when her teenage daughter decides more than halfway through the series that she's going to auction off her virginity. And I was just like, come on. It just felt to me like it was just throwing more drama at the drama for the sake of it.
Okay, I didn't feel that. I really enjoyed it because I felt that it allowed us to see how each of the characters would deal with these different situations. And I feel like by understanding those characters, when we get to the end and seeing how they deal with the main climax, knowing how they've dealt with all these other things as they go along, made it so powerful. And I think without the backstory of the affair and knowing how important that was to the Madeline character, and then watching her as Ed is singing and the horror of the fact that what she's done to this beautiful man who so purely loves her, I think was so nuanced. I have to say that I found those 2 episodes that you're referring to, 5 and 6, to be some of the most riveting and nuanced and subtle television I've seen. I just thought it got better and better.
Well, there you go. Okay, fair enough. Yeah. I think the best scenes in the whole thing, which were way loaded into the second half of the whole series, were the psychiatrist scenes between Nicole Kidman and Robin Weikart as the therapist.
Yeah.
I thought those scenes were amazing and so much better than the therapy scenes you normally see on television or in movies.
Absolutely. And to think that when we first discussed this, we thought the Nicole Kidman character was the least interesting. I think they've really done that to us on purpose. They set up these characters that we think, oh, well, here's that person who's going through domestic violence and they're the victim. But then to watch her gradually shift and recognise that she is being abused, and it is electrifying.
Yeah.
Those scenes are electrifying.
And the performance of Robin Weikart as the therapist was so understated but so perfectly done.
Yes.
Those scenes were just brilliantly written.
At any
and
moment,
performed.
at any moment she could have walked out that door and the therapist could have completely lost. So
Yeah.
it was amazing to see them on tenterhooks.
Yep.
Which actually, this brings me back to the idea that we first discussed, thinking that we dared compare it to something like Desperate Housewives. Because at first we judged the series, or I at least judged the series thinking, oh, it's kind of this glossy, perfect world and we're seeing the world of mothers and then we're forced to see the nuance and get deeper and deeper into those characters. And I feel like the way that they have set it up has allowed us to judge until we really get deep into them and we realize the complexities. And I think that's what the point of the show is to say, well, who have you got next to you that you can so easily make these judgments, like all the flash forwards to the crime scene and what people think, oh, well, you know, based on the mother, no wonder the daughter's such a slut kind of thing. And all these judgments that we're constantly making instead of really recognizing that everyone in the world is just trying to do their best.
Yeah.
It was very philosophical.
I also have to take a mea culpa because I accused Alexander Skarsgård of doing terrible work. And I actually think at the end, he's really bloody amazing.
Yes.
And I think actually, bizarrely enough, like come awards time of the men, he'll be the one up for the awards and maybe even winning awards because he makes such an impression as this vile, vile monster. And he's so perfectly cast at the end of the day because he is so tall and imposing, but also handsome and sexy
And charming.
and charming when he wants to be and all of that stuff.
How charming was he
He
at
was
the party
perfect.
when you knew the fire that he had going on, but he was
Yeah.
so charming?
Like when he was
Terrifying.
just suddenly being able to talk to people, passers-by and stuff who were, totally. And the fact that they had him dressed in that all black with the black hair, I mean, he became the monster that he was always doing, monster to the kids.
Yes.
He looked like a monster dressed as Elvis.
Absolutely. Monster. Could there be a worse monster than a monster dressed as Elvis?
Oh my goodness. That party scene was so incredibly well shot. The director, you know, shot it from everyone's point of view, you know, so that we saw the party
Yep.
from, what are their names again?
We saw Bonnie's point of view.
From Bonnie's point of
We
view.
saw Madeline's point of view. Yeah, Renata,
Yeah.
every single person.
Yeah, and literally from their physical point of view. So there were the 4 different parties going on from each of them, and it was just so well done. And there was so much communicated without dialogue, but just through what they saw and how they interpreted events.
Yep.
It was really quite masterful. So about that party, the entire series long, they
Yes.
kept saying at the trivia night, the person was murdered at the trivia night. The thing that went on at the trivia night, it wasn't a trivia night.
No.
There was no
Oh,
trivia.
That's a really good point. I didn't even recognize there was no trivia.
It was a dress-up night, an Elvis and Audrey Hepburn dress-up night, coupled with a singing talent night. There was no
Where was
trivia.
it? Perhaps the trivia came later and they just ended up skipping it. The trivia was who done it. It was
I
one
wondered if
question.
this otherwise impeccably created series
Yeah.
really fucked up with the trivia.
Yeah, that is really weird. But that contrast of the singing with all the drama going on in the background
Yeah.
was amazing.
Yeah.
Because you had something else to focus on that wasn't imposing enough to get in the way. It's not like there was all these dialogue-heavy scenes that then we'd see snippets of people's reactions. It was this beautiful, light-hearted singing, this competition between 2 men that really meant nothing in the end.
Yeah.
And then you see the way that all the women were brought together by this one extreme incident. But what you're saying in terms of understanding each person's point of view, I think the series as a whole did that amazingly. To think, especially with the scenes with the psychologist when she'll be saying, no, he didn't hurt me that much, and you have the flashbacks, or then you'll be having breakfast with one family and then you see what the other family are doing at that same time. It doesn't feel like all these different storylines. It feels like a group effort. There's something very symbiotic about all those people coming together, which we see at the end.
And as you say, it really felt like at the first few episodes that the Nicole Kidman, Alexander Skarsgård story was happening off on the side.
Yes.
That the Jane and Madeline story was the central thing, Jane, Madeline and sort of antagonist Renata, and that Nicole Kidman and Alexander Skarsgård were off on the side, and yet, of course, they were central to the whole thing. He was the one that got killed. He got killed because of what he was doing to her. I mean, phenomenal.
And it makes sense that the story was on the outside because no one else knew of it. So
Yeah.
it needed to be. And the same as with the Renata character, us disliking her the whole time and then seeing her redeem herself in that final episode, knowing that she's just a person who still wants the best for everyone else. And
And of course,
moved.
Jane and Alexander Skarsgård's character, Perry, Jane and Perry, of course, could never cross
Meet.
paths before that because of the big reveal that Perry was the one who had raped Jane.
And the fact that they managed to show that moment with no words. Every single actor in that scene, every character was so present and so aware, and you could see in their eyes the moment when each of them realised that this is what had happened, that he was the rapist.
Absolutely. There was this communication just going on in the eyes from Shailene Woodley to Reese Witherspoon to Nicole Kidman, and they all just did it. It was remarkable. It was a really remarkable moment.
I'm getting
of acting.
tingles just talking about it right now. And you could not have done that scene with any subpar actors. You had to have those absolutely brilliant, electrifying women in the scene.
Yeah. I can't recall another instance where the finale of a series has redeemed the whole thing for me in such a way. Like I appreciated it for various things, but it was losing me. And then, as I say, that finale just made me just look back at the whole thing and go like, this was good.
You could
this
see it
was
all
solid.
through. Yeah, you see it all through different eyes. Every single bit of the nuance seemed to make sense when it came to the last episode.
Now, in that singing, Zoe Kravitz did her own singing because she can really sing. But they found other voices for Adam Scott's character and the guy who played Nathan.
Did they?
And that wasn't those actors' voices.
I was so impressed.
But wasn't it funny, the idea that like all of these people could sing really well?
That weirded me out a little bit, but I also loved it because you knew they'd all been rehearsing so hard. You think with that much money, they probably could all have afforded amazing vocal coaches so that they could do well at this trivia, not trivia night to perform their singing.
Trivia, yeah. Now, there was you constantly got this threat of male violence too from the others, and the fact that it didn't come down to them having blows, but came down to them actually trying to battle it out with over-rehearsed, songs at their kids' sort of talent night was really, really funny, and showed up that like when the male violence does occur, it's actually the horrendousness of domestic abuse, is all that we're going to get. The other stuff becomes sort of piffy and trivialized.
The male competition comes down to some singing. Yeah, absolutely. That is an interesting point that I hadn't considered, and I guess that is real life as well. So often, men will come up against each other and it's this big bravado act, but so rarely anything happens. But with domestic violence, it's the complete opposite. It's something that you don't see and you don't really realise, but it's so traumatic under the surface. And they really brought that to life.
Now, Adam Scott shaved his beard for the final for the
I
party.
didn't notice that.
I
didn't even notice that.
His beard was gone for the party.
Well, Elvis never had a beard. He couldn't have had a beard.
I know.
What he should have done is probably, put something in here so he could have got the little Elvis Presley bum chin thing going on.
Yeah.
That would have been cool.
So obviously they must have shot in sequence, I guess, because that did not look like a fake beard to me. So they must have shot that party last and been absolutely sure they didn't have any reshoots to do with Adam Scott, because
that's true.
Yeah, he shaved off quite an established beard.
We need to rewatch the life and times of Adam Scott's beard throughout the series.
Yeah. Now, why did Bonnie go with Nathan, do you think?
That's a good question. I don't understand that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, she was held up as such an ideal, and obviously she had to be, she had to make all these other very attractive women feel insecure about themselves, but just because by nature of being 20 years younger and just being unbelievably hot in every way. She's this sweating yoga teacher, who's just exotic and gorgeous and flower child and everything. But they made her such this quote unquote hot ideal that you really wondered what she saw in Nathan, I thought.
Yeah, I think that's true, but it's often true of relationships. You see from the outside and you don't understand why they're together. But you're right, she seemed to be bringing all the positivity to the relationship. You never really saw what she might be getting out of being with him. Not really.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. What I thought was most interesting about Bonnie's character is the fact that I feel like the men were really just used to show what the women were like in real life. So as much as the male characters didn't feel that fleshed out, every scene that the male character actually got to do something interesting showed us a different side to the females, who then ended up being the big network at the end of the film. So understanding that Bonnie was the one who was always trying to calm Nathan down and always the one trying to make him see reason made it all the more interesting that she ended up being the one who pushes, Perry down the stairs. And I think her being this sacrificial person, this person who believes in the greater good, it had to be her. As soon as I saw her walk down, it had to be her who did that and take the ultimate sacrifice for all of those other women. As much as murder conflicts with her personality, it works.
So you found that satisfying, that it was
Very
that she was the
satisfying.
killer, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was very, very well shot. What she saw, what we saw through her eyes, because you know, if you just sort of glanced at it, you might not notice anything. You had to be able to read the body language so perfectly to get
Yeah.
it, and she did. Yeah, really, really clever.
Yeah, and so people talking about series 2, no series 2, that kind of thing.
Jean-Marc Vallée has said no way. He doesn't want one. He doesn't want to be involved with one. He doesn't think there is any reason for one, and there isn't. I mean, it was a book. It finished. There's 3 mysteries. They're all solved. Why would you possibly do it? But of course, this is a huge hit. We aren't the only people talking about this finale right now on podcasts, in op-ed columns, in entertainment columns, all over the world. People are talking about this. And so there will be intense pressure. There will be intense financial pressure to do another one. What I think will probably happen instead, my prediction, is that I think Nicole Kidman and Reese Witherspoon as a production entity have already snapped up the rights to other work by the same author.
Right.
So I think you'll find those two, probably Jean-Marc Vallée as the director, and maybe other cast members reconvening in a different story by the same author.
That is what would interest me the most as
Yeah.
well, because I feel like they left enough open at the end of this. You know, just even the Reese Witherspoon character and the affair, you never really see how it plays out, but in life you never really see all those details. If we saw all those details, it would be much less entrancing. And you're right, the story's played out.
Yeah, the
I
only
wanna
way
see
you could
something new.
extend this story now would be for the cop to be investigating Bonnie, and we didn't need to see that.
We don't need to see that. It's not
No.
interesting. I would love to see them working together again, though.
will.
The fact that they've managed to do this, I think, is just going to give them so much cred, and I can't wait to see what they do next.
Oh, they totally will. If they are not torn apart come awards season.
Oh, surely not. Surely not. Surely, I feel like the way that this is just shown, women coming together and supporting each other despite all else, they can't be torn apart
Are you
by
not
awards.
watching Feud?
That's too superficial. Yeah, exactly.
So let's make some awards predictions.
All right.
Let's assume that Reese and Nicole are both going for lead actress as opposed to supporting actress. Let's say we'll let Shailene and Zoe Kravitz go for
for
support,
supporting.
even though really kind of Jane's kind of the lead. I don't know. Let's say
hard
that
to know.
it's going to be Reese and Nicole. Who's going to get it?
I think it just has to be Nicole.
Yeah, kind of has to be at the end of the day, doesn't it?
You think so?
Yeah.
Because throughout, I was much more drawn to Reese's character, but that moment where she realizes that her husband knows about the apartment,
Yeah.
watching her face in that
Yeah.
was the most electrifying close-up I've seen on television. It
Yeah.
was so beautiful.
Yeah, well,
and
yeah.
just for that moment, I think she deserves an award.
That's true. And all of the scenes with a therapist and all of the scenes of abuse. I mean, I thought there were too many, and to me, this is a weird word to use when you're seeing scenes leading up to a guy hitting a woman, but they got boring to me because I was expecting what was going to happen, and the fact that they were just getting more severe wasn't making them more interesting. But her performance in all of those scenes was incredible.
Yeah.
Because there was, that knife edge of fear of, oh, is this going to be one of the times when it dissipates, or is this going to be one of the times when he hits me, combined with the really murky soup of the fact that it was also sexual for both of them.
I think they definitely could have reduced the violence to keep us guessing as to whether this would be a moment where he reacts or not. So I agree in terms of less violence in that way, but yes, still.
Yeah. And there were really
Amazing.
clever things done with our expectations of that. Like there was one moment when you think, oh, phew, it
Yes.
didn't happen this time. Oh, thank God. And then in flashbacks, with a Lego over the head and everything, you see that it actually did.
Yeah, and I was waiting to see what would happen in that moment. And then when they cut away from it, there was always that question of what might have happened. And that's what's scary, is not knowing whether someone is going to make love to you or kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really the highest stakes you could possibly have.
Yeah. Now with the kid mystery, the mystery of who was bullying poor Amabella?
Terrible name.
Never name your child Amabella.
No.
That obviously was that made perfect sense at the end of the day, that it was going to be one of the twins or the twins because they were being influenced by their father.
And it was perfect for that to be really the turning point for Celeste, where she realises, I can't be with him because if I am, my kids are going to end up being like him and replicating this kind of behaviour.
Yeah.
She finally realises that it does affect her kids and it's not just her anymore. Yeah, I think that worked so well. I think that the way they used the camera at the very death knock, and they did it all the way through, but in that particular point where they had the crashing waves and the fighting, I think the way the camera was used in that, quickly cutting between the ocean and all these women who are together, having this beautiful time, and what's brought them together, I think was just such an amazing juxtaposition. So I think, yeah, the cinematography and the director's choices there was so strong.
Yeah, I mean, it benefited tremendously from having one director, Jean-Marc Vallée, the whole way through. And, you know, he did what he did with Wild, basically. He used all natural lighting, used a lot of cameras. So I gather he allows the scenes to play all the way through and covers them with a lot of cameras. So essentially, you know, you're getting to see the actors go through the whole range of the scene and the whole range of emotions involved in the scene, like a play. And he did use editing throughout the whole thing, especially with those flash forwards, very, very effectively.
So well.
Well, as it turns out, we both give Big Little Lies a huge watch this, which I'm assuming you have if you're now watching this, because we've spoiled the hell out of it. Thanks, Miriam.
Thank you, CJ.
I just feel